Sangama Mega Education Expo presented by Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Bangalore campus, powered by Ramaiah University of Applied Sciences, and this is in association with Ad6 Advertising. Law as a career. That's the topic that we are discussing today. We have Dr. Sunil John, the professor of Manipal Law School, Bangalore campus. Thank you, Mr. John, for joining us today. It's a topic that many are interested in, law as a career. Many want to do it, but there are certain questions that are unanswered, that are worried. How would you look at law as a career? At a surface level, we'll get into the details later.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of the News Network and News18 Network and the Vidya Sangama. I will try to dispel as much as possible the different ideas and different difficulties that people face, or the questions that they might have about the studying of law. Now, law as a career is a great option, in the sense that gone are the days when people think that lawyers were only appearing in the court, they were wearing black and white, and courtrooms were the only place that they would go, but that is dispelled. Today, law is part of every single career. So you have law and science, you need law in politics, you need law in companies, you need law in corporate sectors, you need law in science and technology, you name it, and law is part of every single profession that people would look at you. So you can do law in various ways. You can study engineering and do law. There are people who have done medicine, medical doctors who do law because the increasing number of medical legal cases. Then you have people who work with industries, designing. You need lawyers who have specialized approach in technology. You would have heard about the kind of legal battles that happen between designs. Let's say the case that happened between Samsung and Apple, about the kind of technology that they use, the kind of design that they would use, and this is growing. There is more and more litigations happening as we move towards a digital world. So there are clashes, there are contests, people contest on designs, people contest on technology. So law is something that everybody has a role to play with. And that is where that is the beauty of law. That is where law really means, makes it meaningful.
One of the concerns, or rather a question on everyone's mind, especially students, is it too long a course? That can I afford it? Can I spend 4 or 5 years on this? What would I get at the end of it? Because every other course is very defined, they know what they're getting. For example, they're like, okay, I can finish my UG in 3 years, get a job in so-and-so sector. I can finish engineering in 4 years. So that's the mindset of students. How do you pitch law as a course in this context?
Now, there are two ways of doing laws. Earlier, law was available in a 3-year LLB programs, for which the entry was the graduation. So you had to do a 3-year graduation in arts, science, or commerce, and then do law of 3 years. So that makes total of 6 years. And then if you want to do LLM, that's another 2 years or 1 year, and so on. But now we have integrated law programs, which is very professionally designed, and the entry level for that is 12th standard. So anybody who has completed 12th with 45 degrees, 45% of marks, can apply to study law. And there are different categories of institutions. So you can write CLAT, you can write, for example, Manipal entrance exam. Then you have different universities conducting their own entrance exams. And if you qualify, you can study law for 5 years. And there are different streams now. You can do BA LLB, you can do BCom LLB, BBA LLB. There are also universities that offer, let's say, BSc LLB. So the component of science is included as well as law. So it's spending 5 years. I mean, 5 years is whether you do your MBBS or whether you do your engineering, the time spent is almost the same. And the end of it, you are actually getting a professional degree. So the new NEP also has degree programs which is 4 years, and then law is 5 years.
Yeah.
So it gives you a lot of exposure, lot of experience in learning law. Now, for example, a student who spends 5 years in a law school is not just learning about the subject, but he is also learning skills of drafting. He is learning many skills, skills of listening, skills of talking, skills of application of law. So that is what he actually learns. And believe me, 5 years goes very fast in law school, and students don't regret it. Actually, it's a very encouraging thing to study.
You spoke about 45% being the eligibility or the cutoff mark.
Yes.
Right? That's as far as numbers are concerned.
Yes.
When we talk about acumen, what should ideally a student considering to take a law course have as an acumen, or as something that's on his mind, or he should be sharp in?
Well, there were times when parents would come and meet us and tell that, look, my child wants to study law because he argues at home a lot. So he is very argumentative, so I think law will make a good career for him. Not really. Argument is not one of the areas, but what is more important is understanding what you talk, knowing what you talk and applying what you talk. So as a lawyer, you are trained to look at both the sides. See both the sides of the coin. So you are not looking at just one side of it. You know both the negatives as well as the positives. So the application of law, what we teach in law school, enables a student to look at both the sides, to see the reason behind why he is doing that. And that's where it really matters. Now, there are times when you will often read in newspapers saying that, no, there's a criminal lawyer who is defending a criminal. Now, for a lawyer, he is not a criminal. He is applying his reason, whether the evidences has to be examined, whether he's really a criminal, and if he's a criminal, then what kind of punishment can he deserve? So that is one way of looking at law. But then I think law is very positive. It really enables students to look at different points of view of life.
Dr. Chand, what are some of streams of law that are actually doing well, booming, if I may say so? You have corporate law, you have patent law, you mentioned about the Samsung case. What are some of the newer versions or newer streams of law that has actually ensured that it's something that's globally very competitive for students?
Yes, I think in India, a good number of lawyers are involved in civil litigation.
Yes.
There are good numbers of...
In fact, they are the face of lawyers whenever you think of lawyers.
Yes, exactly. And there are lawyers who are involved with, let's say, construction industry. Now, in Bangalore, for example, you have booming industry, construction industry growing, and that requires a good number of lawyers who are going to handle litigation, who are going to check out the papers. So those are the things that is in good demand. But then there is also a big demand for lawyers in corporate sectors. With increasing mergers, increasing acquisitions, companies buying out different companies, I think you need a huge number of lawyers doing that. Now, for example, a few years back when Tatas were buying the Land Rover and Jaguar from Ford, I think there were more than 300 lawyers involved looking at different aspects, from accounting, finances, mergers, resources, human resources. I think it's huge, and globally, if you look at the trend, more and more mergers are happening. Companies are buying out. So there are lawyers who would be required to do with shares, those who are handling businesses. I think it's a huge area. I mean, I think every single area has a good demand right now. And after post-pandemic, I think the profession of lawyers and medical doctors were the only one who really survived the pandemic. Many others were going home and they were running jobless. True. But then lawyers did not. There were many other things involved. So that is how I would look at it.
One of the comments, or rather grouse that I've seen on social media and other places, is women complaining that courtrooms are filled with men. Right? So would you advocate that women pick it up, take the course and break that barrier and ensure that there's equal participation? Are you seeing that changing, especially when you talk about the civil courts or the criminal courts. Corporate law still is much better, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, I think there was a wrong notion that lawyers who are protecting criminals and lawyers would probably be needed in police stations at odd hours of the day or night. So men were more preferred to be doing that kind of a job, but not anymore. I think we see the entry of women in probably equal, if not more, into the legal profession. I know personally there are many women who do much better than men, even as criminal lawyers. So those days are gone. So
those barriers are broken.
Those barriers are already broken. I think women have broken the glass ceiling already.
Fantastic to hear that. Finally, we spoke about acumen. One thing that would be on many parents' mind is how lucrative is it, right? How lucrative is it? Is it a well-paying job? If my son or daughter picks it up, takes this course, the end of 5 years, what will she end up with in terms of an offer from a company? What have you seen generally?
I think the difficulty here is people often compare law with other professions like engineering or let's say management, MBA, where pay packets are announced in advance.
Yeah.
Lawyers don't have a pay packet. Their pay packet can be anything. If you are a good lawyer, it takes a few years to become a good lawyer, a practicing lawyer. And a good practicing lawyer can command anything from, let's say, 20,000 to 1 lakh, 2 lakh for just an appearance in court. A good lawyer can charge something like several lakhs just to appear in the court. So what really matters is that there is a little incubation time. Lawyers have to learn the skill, learn the process of appearing in the court, and that takes a little longer in the sense that law schools don't teach the practice of law. They don't teach the process of applications, into going into the practice. But that is only with the practicing lawyers. But lawyers who work for corporate sectors, lawyers who are working in law firms command anything from, let's say, a minimum of 50 to 60,000 rupees per month. That's the entry level. And as you go by, it keeps increasing.
True.
So law is a very lucrative. My only advice is, please wait and watch. Don't be in a hurry to. Don't
compare it
look
with
into
your
the pay
friends in
packets.
IIMs and
Yes.
IITs.
If you're really good, you can really make it big.
Okay, my final question to you, anyone who's brainstorming, thinking about taking up law course, how should they make that decision? What should be the parameters?
The parameters are not very difficult. If you have already made up your mind,
or if they're in the process of
if you are in the process of making a decision whether you want to study law or not, there are various things that a lawyer can actually do. From becoming a politician, all the leading politicians in the world are lawyers. From American presidents to Indian presidents, all of them are lawyers, most of them are. I mean, but then you know that you don't become a prime minister on the first day when you join the politics. You have to work your way up. It's a tough thing. But then law definitely gives them an advantage. So if you are inspired to study law, then make up your mind, start looking around and choose what you really like. Now, what I feel is important is don't lose track. If you like science, you can do your BSc law. If you love commerce and management, there is BBA law. Then there is BCom law. And if you really don't like any of those things, then there is BA law, where you can actually study political science, political philosophy, and then study law. So all these things are there. So you don't have to lose track to lose your subject to join study law. You can do your subject and still study law and still practice and follow the passion that you really love to.
True, true. Dr. John, it's been an enlightening conversation with you. I'm hoping that it's also helpful for students. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Well, as we come to the end of this conversation, we would like to thank our partners, our platinum, gold, silver partners, and as well as our stall, beverage, and our radio partner, Big FM, for being part of this Vidya Sangama Education Expo. Thank you for watching.